So you've used quite a few words. You've used the word mistake, immaturity. Would you say in your side of it that you were also sinful, that there was sin involved?
Every situation that came out about Hillsong was addressed with us as lead pastors monthly. So 6 months before the documentary came out, we knew the documentary was on the way. This was in response to the divorce.
So you're like, hey, I'm getting divorced. I can't do this. And you tried to hand it off.
Yeah, because I think for me,
a critique of you would be, hey, he just kind of kept preaching. This
Yeah.
man got divorced and he just kept preaching.
Yeah.
And then like I asked you, like, why did you keep preaching? Do you think you should have taken more time off? And then you were like,
I think, Ruslan, you could come to my church once.
I'm saying I don't know if I
Can
could
I-
sit under
Okay.
a pastor that had gone through it. If I'm just like being friends.
Ruslan.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is Sam Collier, former Hillsong pastor, who has had a tumultuous journey, and he's here to talk about it all. So this is going to be interesting. Sam, thank you for being here all the way from Atlanta, Georgia.
Ruslan, did I say it right? Ruslan?
You said it right.
Okay.
I said your last name right.
Right.
Collier.
Yeah, like phone call.
Collier.
Right?
You said my name right. So
Man, well, I just want to say I had to get on the plane and come out because when you walk through a season like I've walked through over the last 4 or 5 years, one of the things that you encounter initially is people leaving.
mm-hmm.
And so the Bible talks about brothers being made for times of adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, even though we're new brothers,
Mm-hmm.
we've known of each other for a while and,
Yep.
gone back and forth. But you showed up in my time and said, hey, man, if you want to talk,
Yep.
let me know. And you don't know that I cried that particular day. You don't know that.
That's interesting.
Because it just meant so much to me,
Yep.
with the size of platform that the Lord has blessed you with.
Yeah.
We prayed before we started,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll pray again. God be with us in Jesus' name. Just because, in our dialogue, even last night, it's like, man, we want to have an edifying conversation about ups and downs and hopefully a story of redemption.
Amen.
So had
Amen.
to come.
Yeah, and just background context, we have a mutual friend in the truth,
The truth.
Manny,
Duh.
who was your number 2
Yeah.
at Hillsong Atlanta,
Yeah.
which turned into
Story
Story
Church.
Church,
Atlanta. Yeah.
Story Church Atlanta, and now
Christian Cultural Center.
Christian Cultural
Atlanta,
Center.
CCC.
with Dr. A.R. Bernard,
Yes.
which we'll get into that. And we were chopping it up. I just followed you on Instagram. I like the way you handled the transition away from Hillsong. I thought that was really, really
Yeah.
well done. And you had connected me with a new friend that I made. And then I was like, hey, come pull up, come do the pod. Because I'm
Yeah.
thinking, Sam's a cool guy, good communicator.
Yeah.
Something there with the Hillsong thing.
Yeah.
I forgot all the stuff that came out at the end of 2023.
Yeah.
And then when we finally set a date, I was like, oh, wait a minute. And I was like, okay. And then we've just been talking offline of how to navigate this in a way that's classy, but truthful and redemptive and all that kind of stuff. So
absolutely.
if we don't nail it, have grace on us,
Right.
audience, have grace on us. We're trying to figure it out.
Please.
But I think there's a lot in here in your story, and we're going to kind of jump around. But there's a lot in here that I think other people are wrestling through in different ways, right?
Yeah.
There's being a Christian and being divorced.
Yeah.
There's being a pastor in ministry, pastoring from the pulpit and being divorced.
Yeah.
Walking through that process. There's co-parenting, and what is that like?
Yeah.
Now being a single pastor, a divorced single pastor.
Yeah.
Dr. A.R. Bernard coming alongside of you at a time where you was out.
Nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
Done with ministry for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That's where I was.
Yeah. And so I think there's so many aspects of this. And I'm sure some people see you as a villain.
Yeah.
Some people will throw crazy labels on you, womanizer, this, that. I want to hear your story, and not that I would have done everything the way you would have done, but I think that there is a redemptive quality of the work in Jesus, even when we think some people could be beyond redemption.
Yeah.
And not to say that getting divorced as a Christian is beyond redemption, but in some people's mind, they may be like, man, how could you, this and that. And we'll get into some of the particulars. And so I guess let's start with some of these crazy headlines that you pointed out, and then we'll kind of work our way through there. I want to talk about your origin story, how you found out who your biological parents were. There's a lot here.
Yeah.
A lot of layers to the onion. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll start on just this headline, which is pretty funny if we're honest, but not funny. It's like funny, but not funny. right? In the peak of this situation at the end of 2023, it says, facing divorce, Pastor Sam Collier admits he was drunk in love and got married too soon.
Yeah.
All right. So
you want me to react to this?
what was happening, and what was the reference to drunken love?
Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, we were in the middle of the divorce process, and the Christian Post was one of the first outlets that broke, that kind of broke the story, which we were hoping, no media kind of got involved, but they jumped out. And we thought as if it would be helpful to respond to the Christian Post. And in my dialogue with him, we later, after that decided, hey, let's not do any more media because we just need this to die down for the sake of the family, and for my son. And I was actually trying to make a joke in the middle of the conversation between me and the gentleman at the Christian Post. And because I was...
You're trying to lighten the mood.
I'm trying to lighten the mood. I'm like, we've had this heavy interview. And I'm like, hey, we got married after 2 months of knowing each other, 2-3 months of knowing each other. And his question was, well, why? Why would you do that? You went against counsel. You went against your best judgment. And I said, Beyonce says, Beyonce calls it drunk in love. Yeah. And he laughed. I didn't think it was going to become the headline. Because it gives off that alcoholism. It gives off all of these other things. Admits drunk and this and blah 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 blah. So, you and I had a good laugh about this particular headline because you just don't know, and that's why I love what you said in the beginning, just about navigating all of this very carefully because you don't know what's going to become a headline and what's not, and you got kids involved.
I promise you, we won't title this podcast
Drunken
Love, Pastor.
Drunken Love with Sam Collier and Ruslan.
Yeah, we won't do that.
Right.
So in this article, he said, I'm in disbelief. To be honest, I'm in disbelief. I never thought that I would be in this position. It was never the dream for this.
Yeah.
And that, I could just sense even through that text in our conversation, like through this and then through our conversation, just no one plans for this.
Yeah.
And they're trying to ask you questions and you're having this conversation and you're just like, hey, like we fell in love fast. It doesn't sound like you were trying to excuse the heaviness of what was happening.
Yeah.
But you were trying to provide context to say, hey, we fell in love fast, 2 months in, we're married. Was it a quote unquote against counsel? Like, was there people telling you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't mind talking about that because, my ex-wife was coming out of a divorce, and we were getting together, and seemingly everybody was kind of for just these two talented, anointed individuals kind of coming together, and
you guys are both public people.
Starting the family and all of that. At the time I was with Andy Stanley, and not to bring him into this, but we were at that, at the church at the time. I spent 8 years in his ministry. And he has a rule that you wait 2 years before you get married again once you get a divorce.
Whoa.
He's like 2 years because you need that for the time healing.
Yeah.
And I had been at the ministry at that time around 4 or 5 years, and I knew that was the rule. And then we had another individual at Orange who also was just like, hey, give this a year. Like, before you do anything, give us a year. And so we went against counsel, just blinded, love is blind, they say, and paid the price for it, honestly.
Yeah. Would you say, did that cost you at Andy's church?
There was, it didn't cost me much. I've never been on staff at North Point.
Got you.
But I was within the North Point world. It's kind of difficult to explain. They had about a 40,000 member church. Roughly about 25 different stages on Sunday they had to fill.
Okay.
And so I was a part of that rotation in terms of hosting and speaking.
Got it.
So I would call it, I had the influence of like a pastor on staff without the responsibility.
Got it. Okay. But that was their rule and you kind of unfortunately moved against it.
Yeah.
Now, would you say there were aspects in your own life, other traumas, things from your past relationships that perhaps you carried into this in terms of moving so quickly, like moving against better judgment, moving against counsel. This is someone that's coming out of a delicate situation as well. And was there stuff in you that was like, yeah, no, I'm just going to follow my gut and my heart on this one?
Man, what a great question. I often think about that because you have to take some responsibility even on yourself as the man in the relationship to go, you know what, let me lead us well through this.
Let me protect you and your heart to make sure we're both protected.
And so I often reflect, kind of just on that moment and, what was going on. And, it's going to sound, I think, a little childish, but I think for me, and this is total sidebar talking about Dr. A.R. Bernard and kind of the process I'm going through with them and Pastor Jamal. The process is about maturation. It's about maturing. We talked earlier about, his time at the Nation of Islam and then obviously coming over to Christianity, but bringing that level of discipline and maturing as a man. And that's what a lot of this is about. Because I think that it did probably require more maturity on my part, even in that moment. We talk about taking accountability of just going, you know what? I know you may feel a sense of electric energy. And if anybody's ever fallen in love, you know how, it can get away from you. But maturity says your emotions don't drive the car.
Come on.
They just inform you.
Yeah.
But your mind and your discipline and your maturity should allow for you to temper your emotions to make a wise decision. And so, we talked about Willie Moore Jr. I just did his show. I don't know if this will come out before or afterwards. But we were just, talking about just lessons learned. If you could go back and do it again, what would you do differently? And number one thing I said, I would wait. I would wait. And I've learned that now is, and it was a big lesson for me of just like, man, you know what? And I'll be honest, I think some of the fear even at the time was because things were coming out of a difficult moment and all of that, man, if we break up, are we going to lose each other? And at the time it feels really big. In hindsight, you go, man, somebody told me, you spend longer picking a university, in terms of what college you're going to go to. You spend all senior year and even 11th grade year and just picking where you're going to be for 4 years, let alone who you're going to be with for the rest of your life. And so if I could do it all over again, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I use the illustration like in every area of life, whether that's learning to drive a car and get your driver's license, whether that's, when I applied for my citizenship, I had to learn about the
You're not white?
I'm Armenian, refugee. But there was a process to applying for this. I got to answer all these questions, learn about this amendment and that amendment and all these things. You think about starting, any serious venture. I'm applying for my conceal and carry in California right now. There's a process. I applied for. My appointment's in January. Then I got to take a course. Then I got to wait. And then but the thing that is arguably the most important thing that any of us are going to do is who are we going to be married to and start a family with? Is often done with the least amount of preparation and discipline, And so I don't think you're unique you may be unique in that you were a pastor and in ministry when you guys moved quickly, but you're not unique in we just gonna go for it and and build it as we go, And so I think that, I'm fortunate that, man, we went to every marriage conference. We sat with every pastor, everything, because we really wanted to okay, here are going to be the issues in a marriage. Let's know on the front end, so that we're not looking at it, inside surprised, oh my gosh, how could this happen? So I think it's unique in that, you were in ministry when it happened, and you're in your mid-20s at the time, right? Am I tracking correctly age-wise?
I was 28. I was 28.
Already a public figure. She's also a minister, public figure as well. And so I'm sorry, I don't know if you want to chime in on that.
No, I was just the only thing I was gonna jump in and say was, because I have to for the individuals watching who were a part of my life even before then, mentors and others, I have to shout them out because I prepared for marriage for 10 years. I started when I was 18, I felt like I received a word from the Lord that said, you're supposed to be married. I don't think everybody's supposed to be married, but it was something for me. And I still feel like I'm supposed to be married. Maybe not to my ex, but just in general, I think ministry is a family sport, so on and so forth. So I prepared for it for a long time, and then you get to that moment and you're like, wait, I spent 10 years and then you go against what even you've learned. And it's, it's funny. I just feel, when I think back, I just never felt anything like that in my life. It was just that electric, that electric energy. But the Bible says, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I think that was another area that needed to be even that much more renewed. It's been renewed now in terms of applying wisdom to this particular case or to this particular situation. But I think I was kind of taking even some of my cues from culture.
Wow.
Because culture is like, follow your heart. Culture is like, when you know, and all of these things. But when you know doesn't translate necessarily to wisdom. Now, there are people who have got married after 2 months or 3 months or 1 month that are still together today. Somebody asked me, would you advise it? And I said, I would not recommend taking 2 months and getting married.
That's fair.
I'm not going to step on people who have done that. I do think that's not the norm. I think there are anomalies in that.
Yeah.
And then some people just have it, and I've even learned this about myself in leadership. I have to spend more time with people in order to see them because I'm an optimist. So I don't think through, I don't naturally just consider negatives. I think optimism, I see the best, all this. So.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah. And I guarantee you, that will be in the comments of this video. It's like, Ruslan, you're too charitable. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you always believe in the best. So I'm with you. I'm the same way. I'm always trying to believe the best and hope the best. But that's also
like pastors, right?
Yeah. We're seeing things from a positive light. Yeah. So here's the tricky part, and this is just me observationally. Like, we could say yes, wasn't wise. However, you guys have a beautiful child together, right? And so Sammy, somehow in God's providence, in God's sovereignty, I don't know how it all works, right? So I'm not like one of those, God is the Calvinist God of, Reformed 5-point theology. At the same time, I think we have free will and autonomy, but not like ultimately God is sovereign at the same time. So I don't know how it all works together, but in this, there's another human that comes into your guys' union. The union dissipates, but somehow just the fact that God allowed you guys to usher in a human, it's that even if that was sinful in that initial rushing in stage, God's still using it with another child that's going to be that is here.
It's like the beauty from the ashes.
The beauty from the ashes. So fast forward, the Royce reports, all these headlines are coming out. This is the end of December. Former Hillsong Atlanta pastor and his wife announced divorce over accusations of infidelity abuse. Okay, so fast forward, then how do you guys end up at a place where the marriage falls apart? And there's some accusations on both parts. How do you get there? Because I think a lot of people don't know that doesn't happen overnight. It's a long process to end up in a place where because you understand what this is going to do to the ministry. You understand what this is going to do to your reputation. Yeah. So it wasn't like this was hastily done. Yeah. So walk me through like what happened to then be December 2023, 8 years later, a baby together, and now you're divorced and it's public and it's in the media and there's headlines about it.
Yeah. I think, considering my son, will grow up one day and read and listen and all of that, I'll be mindful in my statements and somewhat brief. I said to Willie, it's, our marriage was very difficult. And I remember in a recent interview saying, about kind of just being married after 2 months and all of these things, and the room kind of gasped. They were like, and that's not the first time somebody has done that. But you can kind of look at the writing on the wall a little bit and make a determination that that's probably going to end up being a difficult situation. Coming out of a divorce into another marriage very quickly, the two not knowing each other and so on and so forth. And it creates a very tumultuous environment. And I think you said that earlier. And within that hard, I 100% made mistakes in dealing with the level of hard that we were dealing with, that I have to 100, we've already started with accountability, but I have to take it again in full accountability for the choices I made in the dealing of the conflict and of the difficulty. My therapist, shout out to Jason Van Ruler. I asked him if I could say his name. I was like, I don't want to bring you in.
That's fair. Yeah.
You know, he was like, you know, leave me out if they're trying to, you know. But he calls it subcontracting. You know, we subcontract our needs, and the hope and the idea is that you would learn how to subcontract needs that are really healthy. We all deal with different things in different ways when we go through hard stuff. And so you go 8 years of hard, and it just continues to get worse until finally you make a decision that hopefully would promote health over platform. And so I think the season that I'm even in now is choosing health over platform versus the reverse, because I think for many of us, you know, I said this recently to a friend because they were kind of asking me about the marriage and about kind of my life and all of that, and what was one of the greatest mistakes that you made. And I said, you know, one of the things that you deal with as a pastor and a professional Christian, this is one of the reasons I wanted to honestly stop doing ministry, is because when you're a professional Christian, you often have moments where your theology clashes with your health. And the question becomes, how do you now balance it when the theology is saying one thing, your therapist and your health is saying another thing, and they don't go together?
So can I poke a little bit?
Please.
Theology says, don't get divorced. If I tried correctly, don't get divorced.
Yeah.
You can only get divorced if these things are met, right? Those are debatable. The Catholics think you got no reason to divorce and or remarry, right? Some streams have harsher standards for that. So your theology is saying, pastor, Christian, first and foremost, pastor, husband, divorces off the table, right? But your health and the situation you're now in is saying, this is going to go off the rails if it doesn't end amicably. Is that the tension you're talking about?
Yeah, and I think, you know, I being in the pastoral seat now, and this is one of the things I think will be hopefully our one of the core emphasis of the ministry now. You know, now as we talk about, okay, you're still doing ministry, coming out of all of these hard things and mistakes and all of these things, like, what are you going to offer to, you know, like, how are you going to help people? I think there's a generation of people in 2025 that are in situations that you cannot read one particular scripture for to solve. With the you know, I had somebody, this is a horrible example, but I'm gonna bring it up because it's gonna take us all the way. But somebody said, you know, with the rise of robots, it's like, how do you now reconcile having sex with a robot? That's those are some of the things that we're not looking at with the rise of AI and all these other things. And the Bible isn't clear on what do you say about AI and all of these things, but the ancient principles still apply. So now it's on us to go, how does this scripture fit into the context of where we are today?
Right.
And so I think we have a lot of people in a lot of messy situations. Dr. AR says most of life is lived in the gray. It's not black and white. And I think we want to make things black and white. But one of the reasons why it's so gray is because we're imperfect. So what do you do when you get married too fast and you find yourself in a situation, okay, well, we didn't do that. Okay, so now how do we make that work? And then when free will kicks in and this is who God's made me to be and this is who God's made you to be, I'm not necessarily describing my situation, but situations that I've helped individuals even through, it's like, well, now we got ourselves in this conundrum. Let me give a story. I had a friend of mine who goes back to his childhood, and he says, you know, I just really wish my parents would have got a divorce.
Wow.
Christian leader. He said, because the fact that they stayed together so long and they were killing each other damaged me as a young child, having to grow up in this dysfunctional environment. So then you start asking the question, what is the will of God as it pertains to raising a child? Is it that would God rather you keep that child in a very dysfunctional environment where they grew up arguing and this, that, and the third and seeing disrespect because the two cannot become one because of the origin? Or would God rather that particular situation end and be raised in another 2-parent home that is healthy, God honoring, with the principles of the Lord. Got it wrong the first time, but the second time you took your time, you did your due diligence. All of these things were equally yoked, and now we move forward. I'm not going to give the answer, but I think as people, that is our journey as ministers and as ministry. And so for me, when we talk about this idea of theology clashing with health, this is something, and I think a real issue that we have to deal with. Can I just say a few more things about this? One of the reasons we see so many pastors falling today, and not just pastors, but ministry leaders and tastemakers and headlines. What happened to this person? What happened? And we're now in a generation where we like to get to God's exposing everybody, right? That's where it's at. And to an extent, yes, maybe some of that is true. But if we go below the surface and we start asking the question, how does this keep happening? I believe, and even now that I've been through some of this, I get phone calls from people, names of people you would know that are in something right now that cannot tell anyone because it clashes with their theology. They feel like they're going to lose their career. They don't know how to get it together. And eventually what happens is, what should happen in that moment is they should be able to go and talk to somebody and go, hey, you know what? Like for me, 2 years in, being able to call therapists and others and say, hey, this is what I feel like we need to blah, 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 blah. And they need to be able to walk with that person, make a healthy choice, and then move forward versus them staying in, not just a marriage, but in any unhealthy situation that may clash. And then what happens is they subcontract in unhealthy ways and it blows up even bigger.
Yep.
This is an issue, I think. This is why I didn't want to do ministry anymore, because it's a thing it's difficult.
Well, and just to add, like, ministry is hard.
Yeah.
Local church pastoring as a lead pastor is hard.
Yeah.
It's the rate of burnout and all these sorts of things. So you're already doing a very difficult job.
Yeah.
But then it's ministry, but then it's career.
Yeah.
And it's all kind of overlapping because you said professional Christian earlier.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a pressure that comes with that.
Yeah.
At the same time, I should live like a Christian and I should do the things. We'll look at the scripture about pastors and above reproach and all that stuff in a minute. But yeah, and I'm fortunate in that, like, I was a Christian rapper full-time from 30 to 35, 36.
Yeah.
I didn't start really talking about my faith in this format until I was like 36, 37. The channel didn't really blow up until a couple of years ago. I'm 40 now. And I'm so grateful that so much of what I did was in obscurity, because there's an added layer of pressure and all this stuff, man. That like I'm in a place where I'm far from perfect, but by the grace of God, I really feel like what we're doing here is like from a place of overflow, and not from a place of like, it's my career, I got to show up, I got to do it. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think what you're saying is the professional Christian part is interesting because we talked a little bit about like the overlap of career and ministry and all that. And it's just difficult, you know. It's difficult to be a pastor, but then to also, this is your livelihood at the same time. I don't know if you want to add to any of that, but I think there's a conversation there that pastors are wrestling through.
You're talking about, well, one of the things I experienced when I went through everything, and I just want to say this because I know we didn't mention, I mean, there was no abuse, you know, in terms of me hitting my ex. Lord, I don't. Yeah. We didn't get to that. We didn't get to that point.
But you feel like it could have.
I think the level of difficulty could have led there for sure. Yeah. Which is another reason why I think, you know, it ended and should have ended even earlier. It did not get to that point. And I think there's a lot of couples, unfortunately, that they do get to that point. I've got members in my church now, who are dealing with that.
That's heavy.
And they're trying to stay together, but they've crossed a few lines, and you know, and again, you know, anyway. So I think when we talk about this idea of professional Christendom, one of the things that I experienced, you know, even going through everything that I went through, is that you realize that Christianity or ministry is one of the only careers that you can have where your money is directly connected to your morality or perceived morality. And so it whether it's true or not, whether it's an accusation or not, anything, if it's rocking the boat, it can have implications on how you feed your family. And that can be very difficult. And it's one of the only It's one of the only industries in which that can become true. It's what we look at in sports, this, that, and the third, where people they're living, and let's just take it out of extreme moral issues, and let's just go to mistakes or whatever, or just being human. To have a space in which you can be human, because we're imperfect vessels being used by God to hopefully do something that could be perceived as perfect. We look at, Kirk Franklin talks all the time just about, have we really studied the characters of the Bible that the Lord used? They were imperfect in nature, yet God was still choosing to use them. Okay, David's a man after God's own heart. Wait a minute. He slept with a man's wife and then killed the man. Like, what are we? And then obviously you get New Testament, Paul's killing. Like, it's like, what are we? Paul, I do the things that I don't want to do, and I'm wrestling and all of these. He's explaining the fact, hey, I'm human, having a human experience, trying to do something that is divine. And we're going to get to, I think, restoration and all of that. What does that mean? How does that work out? Because I do think that's really important. The Bible does talk about how to be human, how to be restored, how to be imperfect and yet start over, repent, turn, redemption, all of those things. But it is a real issue, and I don't want to say it's a real issue. It's a massive issue, because my concern is that if we don't learn how to do this well, I was talking to Pastor Jamal Bernard today before I got on here, and I said, hey, I'm going on Ruslan. Anything you want me to communicate, and he talked about, he said, let him know we're going through a process with you of redemption, of walking through things, of maturation, of maturing, and that we don't get that right in the church many times. We often shoot our wounded and all of these things. And my fear is that if we don't get this under control and create a process where people, a healthy process, I think with therapists involved, then we're going to continue to see people getting worse in the pulpit. We're going to continue to see people not falling at a rapid rate, and we're going to continue to be disillusioned and lose faith in the idea of what does it mean to be a Christian. If the leaders can't do it, then how can we? Yep. Versus going, hey, how do we actually do this well and create? I think that's where the church is going. It has to go.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I find solace in is a safe place with a couple guys in my life for confession. And oftentimes with confession, it's confessing the thing before it's the thing. It's like, oh man, I saw this girl, she was attractive and I lusted. Versus, man, I've been binging on, crazy stuff on the internet, and and so it's like, I think the safe place for confession, while they're I don't want to say small, but like Song of Solomon talks about the little foxes that eat up the garden, right?
Yeah.
Would you say as a pastor, you had a safe place outside of therapy, but with just a band of brothers where you can confess things before they festered and turned into bigger things? Because oftentimes pastors feel alone. They feel isolated. They feel like, I can't, because everyone's perceiving me in this sense. If I go and confess that I looked at porn, or I looked at this woman lustfully, or I thought this crazy intrusive thought, I don't even know where it came from. If they do that, then now people are looking at them side-eyed and might, you know what I mean? Now you got to sit down and what's going on, and we'll talk about you taking a break later. Yeah. But yeah, like, do you feel like you had a safe space within brothers, not in therapy, but to confess sin and make it a practice?
Yeah, I think so. I want to answer that twofold though. Truth was one of those places that I could go and, hey, therapist, another place. Hey.
Yeah. Manny. Shout out to Manny.
Yeah. Shout out to Manny. Another pastor, I won't give his name. He was out in LA, who I was able to speak to, who was a therapist and a pastor. Hey, here's what's blah, blah, blah. I think the issue is, and then I'm going to jump to the other side, because I think it's two things were going on with me. I think the issue is when it comes to solutions. So oftentimes you have spaces where, like, let me pause. Let's pull the layer back for a second. Okay. You're Ruslan. You deal with stuff like this all the time. What you end up probably reporting on is probably a fraction of the things that is happening behind the scenes. Can we just okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff we don't talk about that here because it's not public.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like, if something's not publicly reported and confirmed, we're not going to talk about it.
Right. But behind the scenes, like I don't know if you call it the brotherhood, the sisterhood, or the Christian, whatever, there's so much that happens behind the scenes that has not gone public. That's one of the reasons why it's like I try to stay away from putting my name on anybody that has gone through anything, because I'm like, everybody at some level is like one report away from being disqualified for ministry, because we're just imperfect. Even if it's not today, 10 years ago this thing happened, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever, that you had an off night, you had a whatever, you were immature and you didn't learn how to. I think in my particular case, my therapist asked me if you could go back to 2 years in, the first time, that you were, it's like, man, we probably shouldn't be together, is like, what would you have needed to make a better decision? And I said, I needed somebody to agree with me. So I had confessionals moments and people where I could talk to, but when it came down to solution, it was like, don't do that. Do this. This is what theology health. It's like, okay. And this is, I find myself now being in conversations with people that are in professional Christendom and household names and all of that, where I'm going, hey, I get it. I hear it. Thank you for confessing this to me. Now let's talk through the right solution. You might need to do this. And even in some of those conversations, it's received as, I can't do that. And here it is. And this is, I'm going to take me to the second one. I can't do that. If I do that, I'm going to lose everything.
Yeah.
Because no, I can't get divorced. No, I can't tell them that. I can't sit down over here and do this. If I do that, they're going to think this, and this is what's going to, the church isn't ready for this level of vulnerability and this, that, and I can't do that. So, and again, I'm just back to that health over platform, theology clashing with this idea of health. And that's the second thing I think that was happening with me, is I had confessional communities, but within those communities, there was a disagreement on the actual solution. It was more focused on the theology of it versus the humanity of it or the health of it. And then I also had this professional Christian thing happening. And I'll just be honest. It's like, so my life blew up, and I don't mean, I amassed a certain level of success within Christendom, but I'm talking about it exploded in a negative way. That's what we started with. And as soon as it exploded in a negative way, everyone that I was ever attached to, not everyone, but many, we can't touch Sam. That's why I said for you even reaching out during that time, I said the same thing to Willie. Man, my God, thank you. I cried that day because you don't want, I don't want to say this. You don't want to be excused for mistakes. I think repentance is a real thing. Accountability is a real thing. And taking and taking blame for your part in a situation is a real thing. I don't think we need to be excusing anybody, but the part that is foreign is, wait a minute, I got people in the culture running towards me in my darkest moment more than people in the church. That doesn't feel doesn't feel like.
That's fair, because it's like, what do you do with the person that's potentially, and again, I don't want to get into the particulars, but like potentially is doing something sinful, yet needs someone to throw their arm around them and to be like, hey, like, okay, the blood of Jesus can cover this. You're out of pocket right now, but let's get you some help. I think that's the difficult part. So you've used quite a few words. You've used the word mistake, immaturity. Would you say in your side of it that you were also sinful? That there was sin involved?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I chose coping mechanisms, and I'm using certain words for a reason. I chose coping mechanisms that were not God honoring, and even sinful, and lustful, right? In dealing with that, that as one of the reasons why everybody has their reason for why you get a divorce, but in terms of why I moved forward with the divorce, was so that I could be the healthiest version of myself, so that I could be proud of the man that I am, so that I could live a life that God would be pleased with. And I found myself not being able to do that there, and went away, and we'll talk about going away to therapy for days at a 3 days straight, 4 days straight. I was in therapy every month, every from the beginning to the end. Somewhere around 200 sessions somewhere was within this marriage.
With your former spouse or individually?
On and off. Yeah,
On and
yeah.
off, so there was efforts made, is what you're saying.
A ton of individual.
Yeah.
And she was doing a ton of work. I was doing a ton of work. And then obviously there was definitely work that was done together, from retreats to this, that, and the third. And so I think I lost my train of thought. We were going down the road of,
the sinful aspect of it. Let me be more specific. The accusation of infidelity is what was hurled against you.
Yeah.
And that's a heavy accusation to say a pastor in the pulpit who is at one point with one of the biggest streams of Christianity, or whatever you want to call it, denominations, Hillsong, is then accused of infidelity while pastoring and ministering.
Mm-hmm.
So to be more specific, the sinfulness of infidelity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what I will say to that, for the sake of the details of myself, is I definitely made big mistakes, and I got to leave it right there, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. But I think if you're listening in, you can hear me.
Do you feel like that disqualifies you
from ministry?
Yeah, from being an elder overseer.
I personally don't have that conviction.
Mm-hmm.
The conviction that I have is around repentance. I think is around living a life worthy of the call. And that's what I feel the Bible communicates. I was looking at a restoration scripture before we started because I knew we would potentially go down that road.
Mm-hmm. And
it talks about if you find someone in sin, that you would restore your brother or sister with gentleness.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of restoration,
least you not fall into sin.
Least you not fall into sin.
Yeah.
And so I think if sin disqualifies you from ministry, then all of us at some point are going to be disqualified. Whether it's public or whether it's not, because we're all going to sin in some way down the road. But I do think, I think there's a difference between active sin and sin that you've made, that now you go, okay, I repent from this. I've learned from this. I've now submitted myself to authority and to leadership and to accountability to live a life worthy of the call.
Yeah. Yeah. It's difficult because I think, and you know this passage, right? But the passage from First Timothy 3, I'll throw it on the screen for you. Here's a trustworthy saying: whoever aspires to be an overseer desires a noble task. So this is an overseer is like, I think you would agree, an overseer in your stream as well as mine is a lead pastor, an elder of a church, right? Not the overseer. Now the overseer is to be above reproach, faithful to his wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, honorable, not giving to drunkenness, not violent but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own family and see that his children obey him, and he must do so in a manner worthy of full respect. If anyone does not know how to manage his own family, how can he take care of God's church? He must not be a recent convert. You know this.
Yeah, but keep reading it.
Yeah, he must not be a recent convert, or he may become conceited and fall under the same judgment as the devil, that's heavy. He must also have a good reputation with outsiders, so that he will not fall into disgrace and into the devil's trap. In the same way, deacons, and then it basically gives the same standard for deacons. One woman man, above reproach. Some heavy. Not to say heavy, but I think standards that all Christians should live by, but especially pastors. So in some streams of Christianity, some denominations, I'm sure like, hey, if you're divorced, if there's sinfulness of this magnitude, not only are you disqualified, you're permanently disqualified.
Yeah.
Right. So how would you then interact with someone like such as myself? Like, if I'm being honest with you, I think you're an awesome human. I think that we're going to become friends. I don't know if I could ever be a member of your church or of a church, of a pastor who's gone through what you've gone through, if I'm being like fully transparent. So how would you then engage with someone and say, hey, listen, this is why I land where I land, and I'm working through the redemptive process of repentance? How would you communicate that to someone like me that goes, man, I don't know if I could ever attend a church of a pastor who went through a divorce in ministry?
Yeah, I think, when you walk through some things like this, if we pull it outside of my story and we go to the wider and broader aspect of Christian leadership, there's so many pastors that have gotten a divorce, gotten remarried, and are leading ministries that are highly successful, changing lives, transforming communities. And so for me, I think you know a tree by the fruit. And so I think we have to first start with the concept of, can God use somebody in a pastoral role who has gone through a divorce, who has gone through mistakes, who has all of these other things, who have had to walk through a restoration process? And the answer is absolutely. There's so many thousands of pastors who are doing phenomenal things, mega churches, smaller churches, getting people saved, preaching the gospel, the anointing of the Lord, and the presence of grace on their life. So at one, I think we have to start with the theology. We'll get to theology in a second.
You're saying from a pragmatic standpoint.
From a pragmatic perspective.
You'll know them by their fruit. There have been men who have gone through worse things, and yet God has seemingly restored them, and they've gone on to do amazing things for the Lord.
Yes.
Okay.
The fruit is beautiful. So when you ask the question, can God use, is he using? I think the evidence would show yes. I think the next step that we go to is around the idea of theology. And that's really, I think, the conversation we're having today. The conversation is, what does the Bible say about someone who has gone through a divorce and is preaching or pastoring? What does the Bible say about somebody who's had to walk through a restoration process and has experienced sin in their life, in their marriage, whatever it is? And we've got different denominations that believe all types. See, the problem, I've been to 4 seminaries. I finished at Southeastern University. I did 80% of my master's at Denver Seminary. Went to Hillsong for Alpha Crucis for about 6 months. And toyed with other, Liberty for like a season. And so, but the majority for me was Denver Seminary and then Southeastern University. The problem with theology and why we have so many denominations today is hermeneutics. That's the issue. We all interpret scripture in a different way. We could see one thing and go, well, no, it must mean this. We could see one thing, and we've got entire denominations that believe that the Spirit, in terms of the manifested part, the prophecy, miracles, signs, wonders, laying on of hands, healing, has stopped. Entire, that is primarily, when we talk about cessationism, that's primarily Southern Baptist Church, right? A ton of Baptist ministries. The joke is Father, Son, Holy Bible, right? But now, and they would be offended by that, so I'm not trying to offend, because they do.
They're definitely coming for us in the comments, right? For sure. They're not going to like that.
No, but I could, and let me get on their side.
And by the way, those would be the people that would be the most likely to say, "Hey, completely disqualified forever and ever and ever,
forever
right?
and ever and ever."
And then folks that are perhaps more on maybe like the prosperity side, the Pentecostal side, the more charismatic side, we tend to be. And that's the side I lean, not prosperity, but like I'm charismatic, right? We tend to be a bit too charitable and too naive, and we're like willing to just forgive everybody, And so that's the other extreme. But I'm sorry, you were flowing.
No, I think the point I was making was this. A lot of this does come down to theology, right? This would be the same denomination that I don't want to put a name on that. Let me go back to Southern Baptist Church and Baptist. They would say we do believe in the Holy Spirit. Let me say that.
Nice. That's good.
I gotta go back.
Clean that up.
Yes, because I have friends who's like, "Don't you dare say," you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I also have had friends, and I'm circling, but I also have friends who grew up Baptist, and then somebody laid hands on them, they fell out, prophetic word, and now they're like, I don't know what to do with this theologically, because their experience with God has informed their theology. Some denominations believe women should never preach or get ordained. Some denominations believe that they should. And so I say all that to say this is a theological issue. Can pastors preach, and would they be qualified to preach having gone through a restoration process or come through sin? And so that's why I personally do not believe that there's any scripture that exists in totality, that communicates that if you have been divorced per se, or gone through sin, that you could not be restored and used by God in an incredible way. And then some would say, go into the restoration process, and what does that mean? And we don't really, there's no scriptures. I did a whole study on restoration when I went through this, because I had people, I've got, again, I'm on my journey, Bishop Eddie Long, Dr. Raphael Warnock, back to Bishop Eddie Long, Andy Stanley for 8 years, Hillsong for 1 year, Story Church, and now Dr. A.R. Bernard. So I've got friends all over the place who believe in so many different things around scripture. So and I had them calling me. Some people were like, you just need to I don't think you should be pastoring anymore.
People have called you and said that to you.
Yeah.
People have called you and said, I don't think you need to be pastoring anymore.
Yes.
This is
my friends.
Okay.
And then I've had friends on the other side who have said, absolutely not. God is working through you. This does not disqualify you. Get back in the pulpit, blah, 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 blah. And then some people are like, you need to take 10 years off. And so I had to do a study on restoration. And in my study of it, I realized there is no clear-cut restorative track in the New Testament that has anything to do with time versus this. There are moments and elements where people sat down for a longer period of time. And there are moments where some people sat down for 2 weeks and then they were back. And so the question becomes, okay, wait, what do we? And so what I had to do is obviously just pray on my own, talk to some pastors and go, okay, God, what are you telling me to do? And I felt as if the Spirit of the Lord said, hey, submit yourself to wise counsel. Definitely take some time off. And I've called you to do this. And let's be mindful. Let's be clear. I did not want to do this anymore. For me, I don't want to, like, the way that it all went down, I think the culture of Christianity, or should I say the institution of Christianity in itself is broken. I don't think the church is broken. The church being the body of believers. I've heard individuals, on the Breakfast Club and others and other platforms just say the church is this and the church is that. I'm not a church hater. I believe in the body of Christ. I believe that the Lord created the body of Christ, right? And we are all together one family. So I'm not criticizing the church, but the institution that governs the body, I think, is broken. So for me, and specifically because we keep seeing so many leaders,
in a local church context or on the macro scale?
I think both.
Okay.
Both and yeah.
Okay.
Because I think I think the system we have now is producing very unhealthy leaders and then crucifying them for the unhealth that was created in the system.
Interesting.
And so I did not want to continue to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Because
how much would you say Hillsong contributed to that? Because when you stepped away from Hillsong, there was multiple situations. The Lentz situation had happened. I don't remember where the Brian Houston situation was. There was multiple other Hillsong pastors that had either been divorced or infidelity or all kinds of crazy things. Would you say some of that, because that's what people are going to think. Like, I mean, the headline was former Hillsong Atlanta pastor, right? So now they're lumping you into this Hillsong docuseries, which you stepped away from Hillsong before that docuseries came out, if my memory serves
the day
correctly.
before.
The day before. So you kind of saw some of the unhealth in this institution, but would you say the institution, the culture of that contributed to, I don't know, an enablement of this sort of marital breakdown?
Yeah, I think for me, and again, I'm balancing everybody and friends and family to be really honest. And I want to be honest. I wasn't at Hillsong long enough to see the I don't want to put quotations on it, but to see the alleged unhealth. I think for me, what I experienced while I was there was a very healthy ministry. Even it just it's saddening for me to see everything in terms of how it went down. The reason I transitioned from Hillsong, and I think you reported on it and did some other things, and the reason I think it was as clean as it could be is because for me, there was one reason that I was leaving, and it was we could not continue the ministry that we started because of the headlines. The headlines were so much, I was losing donors left and right. Had we not shifted, the church wouldn't have been alive for another 2 months. And so we had to make a shift, but I didn't want to leave because I actually enjoyed it. The leadership was very healthy. And the disappointing fact is, there were every situation, again, this is my truth and based on being on the inside, every situation that came out about Hillsong was addressed with us as lead pastors monthly. So 6 months before the documentary came out, we knew the documentary was on the way. And they addressed every moment and produced receipts and all of those particular things. And you have to consider at some level, on a logical level, that you're not the most famous church and one of the largest churches in the world for 20 to 30 to 40 years without having some level of checks and balances in the way. I can't defend Hillsong because I wasn't there. I was only there for a year and a half. But
and you weren't like there as in like you're on the executive team
No.
in Australia. You're a plant.
I'm in
of
Atlanta.
Hillsong.
Yeah,
in Atlanta.
And I'm experiencing the fruit of what's happened. But what I experienced is that there were a lot of checks and balances that maybe could have been tightened a little bit more. Again, I can't speak fully. And
In terms of maybe some of the plants and how much autonomy dudes had to potentially fall and strip up.
yeah, I mean, it's from my understanding, the restoration process was healthy at Hillsong, from my understanding. Again, and so I just don't think I was there long enough
Got you.
to experience the unhealth or the health. But my process was I actually enjoyed it, and I didn't want to leave, but I kind of had to. And so
Yeah, and so in terms of I think this is my macro thought. I think there are men of God that God has used who have done things and said things that I think have been wild. And I'm not talking about within the last 100 years. Like I'm talking Martin Luther, like the reformer himself, said some terrible things about the Jews, awful things about Jewish people. Some would even say that those things that he said about Jewish people went on to influence Hitler, terrible things. And so I don't think we then, well, Catholics and Orthodox would, but I don't think we then go and say Martin Luther disqualified himself and therefore everything he did is null and void. All of his writing, right? Lutheranism out. All of Lutherans are out, right? I don't think we would do that. I think of John Wesley, who, though he didn't go through a divorce, he didn't commit infidelity, he didn't do these things, but not the greatest husband. Not the greatest husband. A pretty neglectful dude in terms of husband. And I love the Wesleyan quadrilateral in terms of how they come to conclusions of what the scriptures teach, right? The Wesleyan quadrilateral is like, how do you deal through a scriptural theological issue? What does the scripture say? What does church history say? What is experience? And then reason, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a very practical utility. And I got friends that are Wesleyan, but we don't just discount all of that because Wesley wasn't the greatest husband.
Yeah.
And to your point, like, so do you leave a situation that could potentially go really off the rails and can cause more sin? Or do you stay and remain a terrible husband and still disqualify yourself according to 1 Timothy of not managing your own household well? Like, and I'm not saying I'm not trying to justify those things, but I'm saying I think there are so many folks we've gleaned from and we learned from throughout church history that didn't always live up to these standards, and we're okay to look the other way. Jonathan Edwards owned slaves, yet his son was one of the biggest abolitionist voices and moving towards ending slavery.
Yeah.
There's a messiness in church history that I think is uncomfortable. And again, this is not for me to cape for pastors who are going through adultery, going through divorce, going through these things. I don't that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that now you're here. Now we're here.
Yeah.
What do we do now?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, what do we do now? You are highly influential. Your name has been dragged. You're not here to defend yourself. You're taking ownership. And folks are stepping up, folks that have, a long track record of ministry, of there is no blemishes next to Dr. A.R. Bernard's name. And they're saying, hey, we don't think you need to quit ministry. You told me you try to give away to church multiple times. Five times. And to a friend of ours, like to Manny, the truth, right? Who
He kept saying no.
Yeah, he kept saying no. And was this some of this in the middle of all of this stuff that you were going through?
This was in response to the divorce.
So you're like, hey, I'm getting divorced. I can't do this. And you tried to hand it off.
Yeah, because I think for me, again, I've got, let's just say 10 people, right? Let's say 10 pastors. 5 of them are saying quit, who are my friends. The other 5 are saying, don't you dare. This is what the Lord is doing. We believe in you, so on and so forth. At some level, if you are humble, you go, maybe they're right. Because I'm not trying to live a life. I don't live to have enemies, and it's not my personality. It's not healthy for me. I'm like, and I have the personality that says, if you don't want me, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go where I'm celebrated, not tolerated, and I'm definitely not gonna try to fight an uphill battle. The Spirit of the Lord absolutely had to tell me to do ministry for me to keep doing it. I heard a audible voice of God say, this is what you're supposed to do. And not only the audible voice of God, he shut down every opportunity for me to get out of it. I got my master's and I was like, I'm out. I'm going to work for the United Nations. I'm going to do this. I'm going corporate.
You had other options.
I had multiple options.
Because I think when people hear the professional Christian part, they're going to assume, oh, well, Sam had to do this because he didn't have any other opportunities.
Oh my God.
And so that's why he stayed in ministry, because he needed the bag. But you had other options.
I had options that would have paid me more money. I play 6 instruments. I used to do music. I've got record label, all these things. And so I did not, when my therapist, when I was on the verge of the nervous breakdown, about to be in the hospital because of all of this, my therapist said, you got to make a decision. And I decided, okay, I'm done with ministry. I don't want to do this. It's too much. I don't like it. My friendships are on the, like, it was just, and God sent Dr. A.R. Bernard at his time when I was 4 days away, Dr. A.R. Bernard and Pastor Jamal, 4 days away from quitting. I had resolved, and I was, let me just be a little bit more transparent. I was excited about quitting. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a new,
it's my exit plan.
There's a new possibility for me.
Yeah.
I got my master's now. I'm a black man in America. I have some connections. It would be so much easier to do this. And then the Lord said no. And I was actually very upset about it. And so you have individuals, that see you during that time and they go, see, he just, they think it's ego and they think it's pride. Well, he just want to be in the pulpit and he's married to this. I'm like, guys, no. And people have to choose to believe, they believe what they want. But for me, it's like, the truth is I did not want to continue. But I also didn't want to be disobedient to what the Spirit of the Lord was saying for my life. I also want to end with this. I think, Ruslan, you could come to my church once.
No, I'm going to say I wouldn't come to your church. I'm saying I don't know if I could sit under a pastor that had gone through it. If I'm just like being friends, I think.
But can we lean in on I don't know?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not a yes or no.
I would lean towards no.
Okay,
and maybe that's the theology side in me.
But you're not at a no.
Yeah, but I'm not at a no. Like I would be very reluctant to be a part of something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that I don't think God can use it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, I think multiple things could be true.
Yeah.
I think I could be for you as a friend and be like, man, well, Dr. A.R. Bernard's involved and it seems like the Lord's in it. I don't know,
Yeah. And you might come around.
Right. Yeah, maybe I'll come around, But I'm just being honest with you because what I don't want people to do, and we talked about this, is like, oh, well, Ruslan's being easy on him and because I've said these things publicly. I'm saying these things. I've said these things publicly before. I've said, like, I don't know if I would recommend going to a church where the pastor has gone through it. So what I don't want to do,
you don't want to.
I don't want to be inconsistent and contradict myself. Now that we're here and we're hanging out and we're hitting it off, like that would be disingenuous for me. So I'm just trying.
But there is room for nuance.
There is room for nuance. Hey, real quick, this is Ruslan in the future, and I just want to slightly nuance this. I understand that when it comes to pastors and family issues, divorce, those sorts of things, there's like a wide spectrum. On one end of the extreme, there's the pastor who was caught up in the middle of a scandal, adultery, bad stuff happening, and continues in ministry. Then on the other end of the spectrum is perhaps a pastor who his wife ended up leaving the faith or leaving the family, and it's more of a 1 Corinthians 7:15 issue where there's abandonment that happened, right? And I understand that there's nuance. There's also the pastor that perhaps got divorced 10 years ago or 20 years ago. There's all types of different situations that happen. And so I just want to slightly nuance this, that what I'm not saying is that any pastor who's ever been divorced can't be used by God. I think God uses all sorts of flawed vessels, myself included. But I do think that pastors should go above and beyond and be above reproach when it comes to their families. But I personally wouldn't and would feel very conflicted attending a church and being a member and sitting under the leadership of a church of a pastor who was in the middle of ministry and went through a divorce. But I just want to add a little bit of nuance there because, again, there's a spectrum. So if you're a pastor, you're watching this, and perhaps you got divorced 10, 20 years ago, maybe you weren't in ministry, I'm not really talking about you. If you're a pastor whose perhaps wife abandoned them, not really talking about you. And I understand that God can and does use people, even people who have gone through things like divorce. So just wanted to add that in there. Let's jump back into the interview. And there is room for nuance. And this is the part where I think, again, another gentleman, A.W. Tozer, neglected his wife, wasn't a great husband. We learned from A.W. Tozer. I mean, how many pastors are quoting A.W. Tozer?
Yeah.
So the nuance is in you don't know the situation and you don't know what someone has gone through and you don't know if there's grounds, if there's not grounds.
Yeah.
And it looks a certain way. Like, here's an example. A critique of you would be, hey, he just kind of kept preaching. This man got divorced and he just kept preaching.
Yeah.
And then like I asked you, like, why did you keep preaching? Do you think you should have taken more time off? And then you were like,
I said, I sat down for 3 months.
In the middle of the divorce.
In the middle. Yeah. I just because I do believe in sitting down. But what happens is the public doesn't know the details. Right. And you try your best, but they're trying to piece it together from social.
And not all, and let me just say this: those of you guys that are here,
and I wanted to sit down 6 months. Yeah, but we'll get into that story in a second.
I just want to say to the audience, like those of you guys that are here that are looking for the details, we're not going to go into the details because this is not about the details of that situation.
Yeah,
you're giving us, I think, more than enough to piece it together. We don't need to get to the details.
And if I have my son who's involved, and
he's going to grow up, and these are out there.
Yeah, but it's. But I think because I'm a public figure and because the public has trusted me, that I do owe the public something. And that's why I was grateful for this. And I did not want you to take it easy on me. I'm like, no, let's have the conversation, because an easy conversation, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. But one where you're really having a conversation about the real things, I think it matters. I want to tell you a story about people coming to a church of a divorce or a blemished pastor. I had a member who's been in our church through all of it, who I think we were online and I just commented on the Insta story. She had posted something about President Trump, and I said, oh, where's this sign, And she said, while I have you in the DM.
They're gonna let you have it.
I've never talked to her. I've never talked. She's been at the church this whole time, like from Hillsong to CCC. And she said, while I have you in the DM, I got a question for you. And I said, okay. Now, this is a person, I stand at the I stand at the door as people walk out of the church every Sunday. And she has passed me at the church at the door several times. And she smiles and she's like, thank you. She's been doing, and she said, I have a question. How does someone get behind a leader that has been blemished? How get behind the things that you've gone through? I'm trying to figure that out. And can you help me? Now, she's been coming to the church the whole time. She was at the church that Sunday, but also is saying, hey, I'm on a journey of like, how do I do this? Help me, pastor me through your stuff. You know what I'm saying? And because I've been in a lot of dialogues, and some of the things can go left, some can go right, and I want to be very mindful of the ministry. I was like, well, let me ask you a couple of questions. Is this question coming from a place you've left the ministry and you're trying to come back, or are you at the ministry now and you're trying to just figure out how to navigate, or are you all the way out and you're just curious? Because I wanted to know how to address, and she said, well, it doesn't matter. I said, well, for me, it would be helpful so that I could love you well through this process. And she said, okay, well, I've been coming. I'm there. I'm still a member. I'm excited. And I just responded to her. I said, well, I think the first thing you have to ask is, did the Lord call me to this ministry? That's the first thing. Because I think for churches, I think all of us can agree to this, like the church you decide to go to, I think God plays a big part in leading you to that. You have to have peace there. Your family has to agree. And you have to, okay, this is what the Lord has said. That's the first thing. I said, because if you don't settle that this is the person you need to be sitting under, then you're always going to have an issue, and you're never going to, and it doesn't matter how restored they become. It doesn't matter how great the message is or not. You're never going to be convinced because you haven't settled. Did God assign me to this person? Now, I have a theology that says, I think God calls us to sit under certain individuals that have a certain thing, a gift that we need in that particular season. And I don't know that it goes on forever. For some people, it's a 10-year stint at a certain ministry. For others, you've shifted and it's another. So I started there with her. I said, one, you got to pray about it. I said, but then two, you have to ask yourself this question. Is this a leader that I feel like I can trust? That's number one. And then two, is this a leader that has taken accountability and is doing his or her best to be everything God's called them to be? Do you actually believe that they're going in the right direction and getting better? I said, and if the answer is yes to all three, I think you'll be fine. But if the answer to any one of those is a little shaky, you're going to struggle. And I said this to her, and I think you should go to a ministry where you can do that at and believe that at. 2 Sundays while she was back at the ministry, it encouraged me. I got emotional and all of these things. And that's the process I think even somebody like you would have to go through if you're like, hey, I think I like this guy, but I got these hangups over here. Like, let me go through, okay, God, what are you saying? Am I supposed to be here? Okay, 2, blah, 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 blah. Is this somebody I can believe? So I just wanted to throw that story out because I think it might be helpful.
I think that's a good story. And that's interesting that you pastored her through, should she sit under your pastor?
That was her question. I said, well, and I said, I've had to do that because I've been with leaders who have been questioned and who have been questionable by the public standards. They've said things, Bishop Long went through some things, and Dr. Raphael Warnock is a politician who they've said things about him. And Andy went through a few things at once, the Old Testament, New Testament, Hillsong, obviously. So I've had to ask those questions as well. And those are the things, the process I had to go through.
Yeah.
Didn't realize it would be me.
Do you think that there's something to, like, I think of the passage, like a little yeast leavens the whole.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think there's something to the idea though, that like, I mean, you named, outside of Andy Stanley, who didn't have like a moral situation, neither did Raphael Warnock, as much as I know, outside of some of his politics that I probably disagree.
Yeah.
But the like Bishop Eddie Long, I mean, that was a serious thing, right? And so, like, is there a culture, right? Coming back to the systemic issue, is there a culture that is more willing to tolerate certain sins than others? And whether that's pointing to King David and like, look, King David, it's like King David wasn't a pastor. You know? Do you think there's something to that where there's certain streams that will just tolerate more in the name of grace and mercy versus saying, hey, no, like fear of God, like the fear of God, what we as leaders do in moderation, like our followings will do in excess. So if we're tolerating these sorts of things from the pulpit, this is going to be in excess within our churches. Is there something there within certain streams of Christianity?
Man, I think what we're talking about is the balance of grace and truth.
Okay.
We've got so many denominations that exist. I often say this. I say this about politics, but I also say this about religion, specifically Christianity. I think the answer is often in the middle.
Okay.
And so when we talk about the Republican Party, we talk about the Democratic Party, and I'm a round back to religion and Christianity. But for the most part, your hot, button issues are, people tend to criticize the Republican Party and say, you just want to stimulate the economy, but you don't care about the poor. And then they'll criticize the Democratic Party and say, you just want to take care of the poor, you don't care about the economy. The truth is, we need to care about the economy and the poor. It actually goes hand in hand. And I actually think if we can come closer together, we'll actually find the answer. So I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. And I think it's the same thing when we get into theological differences around denominations. And these are things that I've studied in seminary and all these other things. And I've been a part, I'll just say, North Point, which is Andy Stanley's ministry, is a foundational Baptist ministry. He went to Dallas Theological Seminary, DTS, which is a Baptist seminary. Bishop Eddie Long, Dr. Raphael Warnock, Hillsong, they're like Pentecostal and this, that, and that. So I've had my fair share on both sides. And what I found is that there are holes in everything. And I think when we talk about just this idea of, of standards, I think it's somewhere in the middle. One side says lawlessness. Another side says law. I think it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
It's there has to be a standard. And can I just use Dr. A.R. Bernard? One of the things he said to me is, hey, we see the situation. We understand it. We don't condone any sin. We do believe the Spirit of the Lord has his hand on you. If you're going to roll with us, these are the standards that we operate. The hope is that in this restoration process that you would live by these standards, that you would be truthful in what you're going through. We have grace, but truth has to be present. This is why I think even for me, the idea of my goal was not to defend myself. My goal was to take accountability because that's the maturation process that I'm going through. So and this is why I decided if I was gonna get back in the ministry, it had to be, I'll do it here.
Yeah.
Because it is, to me, the healthy balance of grace and truth. And I just want to say one more thing, and I'm done, about the Nation of Islam. I'm not in Islam.
Yeah.
But he comes from the Nation of Islam. Again, theologically, I don't agree with them. But the one or two things that I think I have benefited from his time at the Nation is that they do a really great job of wrapping their arms around men who have made mistakes, rehabilitating them, and giving them a second chance at getting it right. And I think that's the gospel message as well, not just for parishioners, but for leaders too.
That's interesting. We're going to come to some things that A.R. Bernard said about you that I thought were very, very encouraging. The tail end of this situation, you take 3 months off. You're trying to hand the church off to people.
Yep.
Preach technically launch day of Story Church, right? Christmas Eve
in the building. So
in the building.
I'm gonna take this off.
Yeah, take that out. Yeah, we'll come back.
We'll come back. Yeah. So we were in the middle of a building project for Story Church. We had been open maybe a year and a half at that point, and I'm fine talking about this because they were friends on the inside of that. The guy who helped us get the commercial spot that never works with churches. I married, when I say married, I officiated his sister's wedding, white individual, and just really gave us a lot of favor and love. And then the president of the West End Investment Fund, Norwood, really, invested gave us about $350,000 to go into a $750,000 project. So you have two friends who are like, man, we just want to see y'all win. We never really do anything like this. And we would never do this with a church. But we're going to all, basically, both of them got behind me with $750,000 to get in this building. And when both of us are in collectively about $400,000 between the two of us, we had another $350 to go. The divorce goes public.
So at this point, you're saying you have taken off 3 months of time. You've tried to hand the church off to the truth.
Yeah. And the goal was to take another 3.
And the goal was to take a total of 6 months off.
Yeah.
And what are you doing in that 3 months in terms of rehabilitation and therapy and stuff? Yeah.
So at the top of the divorce, or right before it, I locked in with a guy, with Jason Van Ruler, who is there's a place in Nashville called On Site. I think you may have heard of it. It's where a lot of celebrities go, and even kind of Christian tastemakers and pastors to walk through intense therapy, trauma treatment, all of the above. And I went away to his house. And so I know some people have gotten that mixed up because they thought I was saying I was going to On-Site. Going to On-Site, I would have gone to, he's one of On-Site's main people there. So they fly him in to do a lot of the sessions.
Yes.
And so I was going to see him there. And a friend, Pastor Adam Weber out of South Dakota, got a mega church up there. He said, hey, if you're going to On-Site, you should probably get with Jason. But Jason, who does all of On-Site stuff, has his own thing that he can just walk you through, and it's like $2,000 less. On-Site's roughly around like $8,000 to go for a week. And Jason going up to his private practice, walking through the same thing that happens at On-Site, is about $6,000. So I spent the money on that, and that was the beginning of our journey. And that was a part of helping me get clarity around the divorce.
So would you say at that point you're separated, or you're fully, the paperwork is filed? Where are you at in the process?
It's hard to say. I would probably say a little bit of probably all of that.
Yeah.
The
paperwork's in motion, you're separated, but you're kind of trying to see if you should still stay in a marriage. Is that
possibly? Yeah. I in terms of that's what I would say. Yes. But there was basically a meeting of the minds that had to take place after that. And so I started that journey with Jason at the top of that particular month, I think in the September, early October. And then it just continued doing more therapy with him. It was the first one started with what they call an intensive. So a lot of times people will go through therapy, and you'll walk through a 6-month journey. And it'll be 2 hours here or there, 1 hour here or there. I did 30 hours straight. So it's so intense. I was like popping Red Bulls every 20 minutes because I kept falling asleep. We were doing so much trauma work. Going back to my childhood of adoption, And then just looking through the last 8 years of the marriage and all of that. Because the goal, again, was health, and living the life that God had intended for me to live and being the man he wanted me to be. And unfortunately for me, I came to the conclusion with the help of therapy that probably would not have been possible in the marriage. And so for those 3 months, it was continuing the therapy that we started. I still talk to Jason to this day and continue with him. It's been roughly almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in October. And letting Pastor Truth at the time preach. He was preaching every single Sunday. And so we get to December, and then it goes public.
And then the critique is, why are you preaching that same Sunday or within that window of time?
Well, a little bit of the backstory to it is by that time, the church knew about the divorce, and it was fine, but it was not public. The church knew about it. And they were like, come back. And I was like, hey, I'm just like walking through this. And tithes are always impacted, and attendance is always impacted, and the organization is always impacted when the lead pastor's not in the pulpit. And so I was like, hey guys, I really didn't even want to preach. It was kind of, I was like, whew, I'm just like going through it. And so when things go public, unknowingly, per se, our tithing, and let me talk about why I'm talking about tithing. The church is a nonprofit in terms of the organization of it. So the only way that the church doesn't have grants. Some churches can get grants for certain projects, but the church doesn't have grants, doesn't have, I mean, you can sell product, but that's not how churches exist. They exist off the donations of individuals, tithing of individuals that believe in that particular parish, and so on and so forth. So I'm talking about tithing to talk about the business side of the reality of a church living, the institution of church. When everything went public, our tithing dropped from 100 to 20%. We had done the deal based on the building, based on 100%, really based on 70%, because you want to have a little bit of margin. When you're at 20%, you barely can even pay your staff to continue worship, music, let alone a $30,000 a month lease that you're now on the hook for. That made sense when you were at 100%. When it drops down there, I get calls from the landlord as well as our lender, like, man, hey, we're halfway into this building. And they're trying to figure out, is this over? Mm-hmm. Because we're 300,000, 400,000 in, and nobody wins with a building. Are we just gonna have to eat the money and then just let it? And then does that now equal a lawsuit? I'm just the business side of things. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I got on the phone with them. I said, guys, I don't even know if we're gonna have a church next week. Mm. And the lender and the landlord they're friends. They get on the phone and they say, it'd be really great if you could finish this project. Mm. Because everybody loses. We've stuck our neck out for you with this, and nobody anticipated this. Not even myself. So one guy who's on the real estate team, he says, look, he does some things that works with churches. He says, look, why don't you try to open the ministry on New Year's Eve? On Christmas Eve, and just try it. See if anybody shows up, and then maybe you preach a little bit, like maybe once or twice a month, and you continue to let Truth do it until the 6 months. And I said, okay. And they said, but you gotta do New Year's Eve because people are coming to see you.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah, Christmas Eve. I'm sorry. They're attached to you. You know, and again, we talked about the young lady who became a member and who's been a member this whole time. There's a sense of, hey, I'm called to Pastor Sam. There's a word that the Lord has put in him that has helped my life, and whatever the gift is. So I said, all right, and for me, it was based. I felt a peace about that. Even though I had people in my ear going, you need to take 10 years off. Then I had the other side going, you should have never taken a break. I was talking about pastors, lead pastors, and people that have theology. And so I come back Christmas Eve to do that particular Sunday, and it's packed. Now this is when the news was out. Everybody knew about it. Things were going sideways, media articles, all of that. And people just came to, try to support. And
Because the news broke like December 19th-ish, somewhere in there,
like
right?
December 10th, I think.
Okay,
It was
so
early.
a couple
No,
weeks.
December 1st.
December 1st
It
is
broke
when
December
it broke.
1st.
Okay.
So that's why I get to the 3 months, because I sat down roughly from the top of October until Christmas Eve.
Uh-huh.
And so then I come back Christmas Eve, and we're able to open the building, and we're hoping that things will be satisfied. And then we just continue to feel the pain of that after that, and eventually get to the point where an eviction notice. We get an eviction notice. So I'll stop there.
Oof. That's heavy. In hindsight, do you feel like you should have taken more time off?
The honest to God truth is I don't know, to be honest. I feel like I made the best possible decision based on the variables at the time to try and be a good human for the individuals that invested. And for me, I really had two choices. There was prayer involved, so I had peace about it in my spirit. But even beyond that, for me, it was, okay, God, what would you have me do? Would you have me just bail on these people and who have invested this money in, like, would you have me just do that? Because if I bail, it's over. Or would you have me try to fulfill the obligations that I set forth? And I landed on, look, I'll take the public scrutiny and try to do my best to get this building going, which we eventually lost. But I at least wanted to try to keep my promise and be a good man.
And so lose the building, Story Church still going, but obviously it's a dip. You continue on. Are you still preaching as much every Sunday?
So I just started doing half and half because, again, the goal was to try to sit down.
Yep.
One of the things that we were advised to do from some church experts was, hey, if y'all and they had a theological tension too. Just to be honest, they were like, okay, that we've never this situation's a little rare. We got money into this, and also we're trying to figure out how to best. Our recommendation is, we know that if the lead pastor is not in the pulpit, it just continues to send more of a bad message to the congregation that can't be trusted. So we think our best bet is at least you should preach a little bit. So maybe not all the time. So I did half and half.
Half and half with the truth.
With the truth.
Yeah. Truth is, he's a good communicator. He seems very
amazing,
competent. But for whatever reason, there were still people that felt more connected to you as the lead pastor than to him.
Yeah, it's something I'm learning is, people, and I'll say Andy Stanley on this. His statement, because I remember talking to him one time about team teaching. He was like, I really don't believe in team teaching. He was like, people follow the set person of that house. So he wouldn't use that language.
Sure.
People follow the pastor. It's like leadership, one person. He said, I've advised churches that have had team teaching, and it's just hard for people.
Yeah.
And so I found that to be true, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, there's pros and cons. I think when you have a team, there is less opportunity to slide into a cult of personality.
Yeah.
The tricky part is that it's less continuity. It's less like consistency. So if you got a team, you really got to have a structure that everyone is teaching in and that everyone can speak into. So you almost got to do all your sermon prep together all the time to have a continuity and the same format and the same template that everybody preaches in, or it's just going to be too disjointed. Like I told you I was at Harris Creek with Jonathan Pecluda, and he raised up multiple guys that are really good communicators. But from my understanding, I think every sermon prep they're doing as a team. And so everyone's speaking into it. And so they have it where almost anyone can take the sermon and preach it. Anyone on a preaching team who's a pastor can take the sermon and preach it on Sunday by the time they're done with the sermon prep on Monday or Tuesday. But to your point, I don't know how much the roller coaster of attendance and people not liking it happens. Because I think even if...
Because is Jonathan doing most of the preaching?
I think he's doing at least half.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's doing at least half. But yeah, these other guys are very competent, good communicators that I'm like, oh, man, these guys are rock stars in terms of preachers. Yeah. But yeah, if we were announced this Sunday at my church, like Pastor Jeff's not preaching, even if I'm preaching or someone else is preaching, there would be an attendance dip, I think, unfortunately.
Well, and what I found is, it's not personal, but what I found is everybody resonates with different people. And there are things about... There will be, I'm going to use this word fan just for the sake of the analogy. but I don't think church members are fans. But I'll say fan of preaching. There will be diehard Ruslan fans of your preaching. And there's something about it that's unique, that resonates with them. And they're like, man, I just love how apologetic he is. I love how he goes in and out of jokes. I love kind of how he gets serious and comes back. And that unique blend that God has given you, this is what I found, that unique blend that God has given you resonates with a certain type of person. And it's the same thing with, who'd you call it, Pastor Jeff? Is that?
Yeah, Pastor Jeff Morris. That's my
and
pastor,
Pastor
brother.
Jeff has his own thing.
Yep.
And let's use me and Truth for an example. Truth is a heavy apologist. I'm a heavy storyteller with apologetic tendencies. You know what I'm saying? Truth is an apologist with story and humor and teaching tendencies. And so we found this. There were people that were like, Truth, when Truth is preaching, and then when I'm preaching, and what happens is when he preached, people showed up. When I preached, they left. When I preached, they showed up. When he preached, they left. And what you find is it's very difficult to build a body.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think that's totally fair. So you go back to 50% preaching, you guys lose that big building, and then you're on, it sounds like you were, was it fair to say burnt out? I know you said you had a nervous breakdown at one point.
Yeah.
Is towards, at what point did you have the nervous breakdown? This is towards
this
losing
is
the
right
building?
after the eviction notice.
Okay.
It was as if, this this difficult journey or traumatic journey started with Hillsong, in terms of just being in the crucible, if you would. So it had been 4 years that I had really just pushed through. And so when the eviction notice hit, I was in New York. I have a podcast on American Urban Radio Network called The Narrative now. And it was kind of the first glimpse after the divorce and the hard season of somebody going, hey, we still kind of believe in your gifts. And so I was really happy. I was like, oh, okay, moment of relief. And then eviction that night. And it was as if 4 years hit me at once. Boom. And so that's when I fell on the ground and was just like shaking a little bit. It was bad. And that's when I picked up the phone and called a therapist. And to be clear, we walked through that eviction process for the next kind of 2 months roughly, because I don't think they wanted us to leave, and we definitely didn't want to leave, but it was trying to get on the same page about what could we make work. So I had to hire attorneys to try and negotiate. I hired this attorney from Harvard who specializes in leases and some other things, who was trying to work out what they would call a pro forma, which basically says, here's how we can get back to where we were financially to be able to pay the rent the way it needs to be paid. It'd probably take us about a year, 2 years. And so that process was about 2 months. But within all of that, I'm now making the decision of whether or not I should even continue to do ministry, and landed on no, I'm out. And so that Wednesday that I was getting ready to go tell the church on the Sunday, hey, we're shutting down Story Church. It's been real. Thank you guys so much, because our pro forma had been denied at that point. But basically we need the rent now, or, and so I knew if we had left that building that it was essentially over. We would go to another building. It's just been through so much trauma with the church. And on that Wednesday, a friend of mine called and said, hey, do you know Dr. A.R. Bernard and Pastor Jamal? I said, well, I heard of Dr. A.R., heard a little bit about Pastor Jamal, never met them a day in my life. I had been connected by text once to, I think, Jamal, but we had not really spoken. And he said, well, they've been watching you die for like the last 4 years. Publicly. And they want to talk. If you're interested. They're trying to do a campus in Atlanta. And 2 days later, Jamal was in Atlanta. And when we sat down, he said to me, man, I'm just sorry we didn't come sooner. What is it going to take for you to make this happen? And it was a lot of money. I was like, upwards of $250,000, like just to try to keep this building going, or to try to keep the church together. And 3 days later, I was in Brooklyn meeting Dr. A.R. Bernard. And when we sat down, it was, who are you? What do you believe in? What's your theology? What's your theology? Where are you at in life? How do you feel about all the things you've been through, so on and so forth? And, the whole time, all I'm thinking is, they probably should know everything that happened in my marriage. Because I had been through so many people leaving. I was just like, I just can't take another death. In you know, the movie Ray about Ray Charles with Jamie Foxx, there's a scene that resonates with me in a greater way now. And he said, he was driving with the guy, he was talking about the military and war, and the guy said, you know, seeing that much death ain't natural. And for me, I think losing that many people, it's like a death after a death after a death after a death. And that contributes to, and that's one of the reasons why people, when they go through things like this, they burn out and commit suicide even, for some people.
Which pastors, oddly enough, have higher self-deletion rates than non-pastors.
Oh, absolutely.
There's been data on that.
Yeah, and it's because you lose so many people so fast. People that you like poured your heart into and all, and you're disillusioned. You're like, wait, is the church supposed to be like this? Like, I'm supposed to just lose like when I go through and then you just get depressed and you know. And so we don't talk about my marriage at all. And that's the only thing that's on the top of my mind. And in terms of everything I've been through, in the last 10 minutes of the conversation, I'm like, hey guys, you want to know about my marriage? You know, I'm like, if we're gonna ride together, like, don't you think you should know about the scars and the mistakes and and they're like, yeah, we gotta go, but like, come on, tell me, you know. And I run through the story, and I just as vulnerable as I can be. Hey, here are the mistakes I made. Here's what happened, so on and so forth, good, bad, and ugly. And they say, yeah, we already knew all of that. We had called around, we had determined, we just wanted to see if you would tell us the truth.
Jeez. And
I'm like, well, does it track? You know?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, pretty much what we heard.
Yeah.
You know, give or take, that, you know, that tracks. It's a new day. We need you to commit yourself to accountability if we're going to do this. And we need you to, you've repented. You're in a state of, okay. All right. Here are our rules. I mean, very Nation of Islam. I tell everybody I feel like I joined the Christian Nation of Islam. Like, that's where I'm at now.
You may not want to keep repeating that.
I know. I had to just say it. I'll retire it after this interview. But you know, before I came here, I said, hey, let me put my suit jacket on. Because it is a certain way that you know, it's discipline, accountability, structure, truth. You know, grace, but on top of all of that.
Yep.
And so that's the journey I've been on. And 3 months later, we planted CCC Atlanta.
So did you take a break in the middle of that? Or like, how did that work? Or did you guys kind of keep meeting while you were restructuring under CCC Atlanta? Yeah,
you know, we kept meeting. We were advised to keep meeting just to kind of keep the gatherings going. There was an announcement. Dr. A.R. Bernard and Pastor Jamal flew down. I think that was like a couple of weeks later and made the announcement, hey, in 2 months, we're going to transition. And this is going to become Christian Cultural Center Atlanta. And so we continued to meet, and we continued to fly back and forth to New York to try to learn their culture. Then we opened. Darwin Hobbs was there, and Abri Babineau, The Truth. And then Israel Halton came and did a big worship night for us. He's their main worship leader up in Brooklyn. And you know, we opened. Yeah.
I got a clip of some stuff Pastor A.R. Bernard said about you and the whole transition. So if you want to grab that little headphone, we'll react to this together. So this is a radio... I think a radio interview you guys did. Shout out to Darlene McCoy.
Yes, Nightly Spirit.
Yeah,
Radio 1.
Yeah, Radio 1. Big props to her. So yeah, this is from this is some stuff he said about you. Check this out.
So a relationship was sparked between Sam and my son Jamal, and they started talking. And PJ felt that he needed to connect with Sam, and he did. And he said, Dad, I have a young man who is in a particular situation and he needs mentoring. He needs a spiritual father. Would you meet with him? I said, okay, sure. Let's meet. Let's talk. And what I look for is where a person's heart is. Yeah. And regardless of what they've experienced externally and circumstances and situations in their life, but I saw that he had a heart for God, a heart for ministry, and needed a certain kind of leadership in his life. That just maybe I could provide. Wow. And we began to pursue that. So it was mutually beneficial. It wasn't one way. It was a mutually beneficial relationship and interaction that culminated in the idea of an acquisition and merger. Wow. Us acquiring Story Church and all that goes with that, and merging two congregations, a blended family essentially. Yeah. And this past week, we had our official launch, and it was an amazing dynamic and experience and anointing that was present.
Wow. And then he goes on to say this about you, which I thought was pretty cool.
Sam is in a new season of life.
Yes.
That's going to elevate him to new levels of understanding, responsibility, information, relationships. And he needs someone to help him through that process.
That's right.
And with God, again, it's mutually beneficial.
That's right. This is such a powerful conversation.
So how does it feel to hear that back?
Wow.
Kind of talking through all this, in one session, and hearing Dr. A.R. Bernard say, Sam needs some people come alongside him and wrap their arms around him. Some spiritual father. Dr. A.R. Bernard is a legend,
Mm-hmm. Man. Dang. We said we were going to show it. I just didn't, I just want to do the right thing, man.
Yeah.
I got adopted. We'll talk about it, but I got adopted at 5 months and rescued out of poverty. Dad was addicted to crack and passed from COVID, never met him. And mother had 5 kids on welfare. And when my mother came to adopt us, they said, you don't want to adopt them. They're probably not going to be much, me and my twin sister. Because they come from addiction and this, that, and the third. And so my parents adopted us and raised us anyway against the statistics. And for me, man, my dad was 50 when he adopted. He's 89. From the backwoods, Georgia, got everything. He got out the mud. And I did the same. And it's just, I spend my life and want to spend my life making them proud. And I hate that I've gone through all this that I've gone through. And I hate that I have made the mistakes that I've made as a result, And I think for me, having a second chance to do it right is the goal. I want to get remarried. I want my son to be able to be raised in a household with a great father. And seeing what marriage can be, supporting your wife, getting behind, all of these things, a healthy marriage, no marriage full of anywhere near sin. Obviously you can't, we all sin, but, and so to be able to have this opportunity to do it, there was, one of the things I thought when I was watching this was, you can go through your life and say, man, I made a lot of good decisions. I got to some great places and, where my ex ended up and, she has done some great things and I'm praying that she continues to do great things and wishing her the best, even in her hurt of this. And you can say, yeah, I need mentorship, but, but one of the things I thought when I saw that is, man, you know what? I do need mentorship. That's what I thought. I was like, because no matter how great it was that I was and things that I did, I still ended up where I ended up, which means that there is opportunity for a greater level of leadership and mentorship around making better decisions, even beyond the details of the marriage, but even getting married as fast as I did. Now the process is, let's move slow, let's be deliberate, let's be disciplined. And my hope and belief is that in this season of my life, as I rebuild with the legendary A.R. Bernard and all of these things, that I would make their investment, that I would do well by that. And that this time it will be built in a way that is sustainable and that I can go back and maybe help some people that are in. That's why I wanted to do this podcast for somebody that's in a situation, maybe like mine, that's in ministry. God's elevated you to a certain level and so on and so forth. And I can speak in before things blow up.
Yeah.
Because I know, and maybe individuals don't know that may be watching this, because you're not in the Christian space or the professional space. You know this. There's so many people now that are in a situation moments away from blowing up. And I'd love to just hopefully be somebody that can step in as AR has stepped in, not be the savior because he kind of rescued me, but at least go, hey, so let's talk about some hard decisions that may need to be made. I think somebody said, I love this. They said choosing the right hard. That's the problem. It's both situations are hard, but let's choose the right hard versus the wrong hard. That will make it worse. So hearing that makes me very emotional.
Yeah.
You know,
What's it feel like? What's it feel like to have a second chance?
we may need to press pause on this. I don't know. I was
You was ready to move on.
I was ready for the let's have the hard questions again. Ask me about divorce.
Yeah.
I didn't never seen this side of you. You've got a gift. I think, feels like the gospel. I feel like the world often is better at giving you a second chance than the church. And that's not a criticism. It kind of is a criticism on the church, but it's really just to say that don't feel like, it just doesn't feel like,
Don't feel kingdom.
it just doesn't, even for leaders, it's, if you can start over in the world, you should be able to start over in a greater way in the church. So even beyond all the theological debates, it's I'll quote an Andy Stanley and what does love require of me? And what does love look like in leadership? I don't think it looks like lawlessness. I think that's our fear. We can't just let people be crazy. I'm like, no, that 100% cannot. And nor do I want to be crazy. I don't want to live that. The whole point of Christianity is that you will live a life worthy of the call, that God would be pleased with your life, in your imperfection, that you would be becoming more like Christ, sanctified, all of these things. We live in it. We're imperfect people trying to get it right, but we should have the space to be able to get it right, and we should not be pursuing a life where we're just wilding out. I don't think that's the goal, and I don't think that's what we're talking about here, but I do think that's the fear of giving people a second chance. You hadn't. We can't condone that. I don't think we should, but I do think if there are I kind of quote Dr. Bernard, if there are individuals that have a heart for God, that want to get it right, that are repentant, that are honest and truthful, and are actually doing the work, I think they should get a second chance.
Yeah. Your ex-wife is also a woman of God, Tony.
Yeah.
When you mentioned Sammy earlier, I said every time you said Sammy and your son, you just light up. And so, what's it been like on this side of it to co-parent, and what is that experience like?
Yeah, at this particular point in time, I'm with Sammy about 5 days a week, and
like daytimes, or is he staying the night? What does that work?
Yeah, I see him about 3-4 hours a day.
Okay.
About 5 days a week, and we landed on that, and all of our divorce documents are public, so you can go check on it, and I'm excited about when he turns, I think 4 or 5, he'll be with me half the time.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's
living
awesome.
And
praise God.
And I'm excited about that. And my ex has been, I believe, gracious, and I think we have 4 times in the document, and she's granted every day, and based on schedules and all that, I'm like, hey, let's lock in on a solid 5, and sometimes 6. I think I'm gonna do 7, next week, and he's a junior, so for me, it's changing diapers, and I've learned how to do that, and it's hanging out, and he's just
how old is Sammy now?
3.
3, yeah.
Yeah, he's 3.
That's a fun age, bro.
Yeah,
this is when their personality starts really, you know what I mean? Because up to that, they're just kind of like, but they're like a 2, 3, 4. That's when they really come alive.
Yeah, he's forming sentences, and I want to be super dad. That's what I want to be. I want to be at everything, and I'm excited about the day we sit and have full on conversations like me and you. And it's been an honor to be there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So cool. So you said in a year or two, you guys will have joint custody.
We've got joint custody now.
But I mean 50-50.
But yeah, 50-50 in terms of, it's they call it a stair-step process where you basically write into it as joint physical custody and joint custody, but you write in a process of, while he's in his more infanty years. Yeah. He, lives with mom.
Yep.
I'm seeing him 5 days a week.
Yep.
And then spending a lot of time, and then he'll come, when he's a little older.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you said you got him for 4, but it seems like Tony, your ex, even in like she could be a follower of the letter of the law, but despite it all, despite you being honest with her and here today, she's extending grace and mercy to you as well in terms of giving you more time.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, I remember the day when it was actually in December when the schedule changed, you know, and she's like, see, you know, here's the time whenever you know, we just had a conversation the other day about, you know, me having them all day. You know, she's like, I just got to make sure you take a nap, but, you know, do your thing. And so absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm extremely grateful for that, you know?
Yeah. Shout out to her. So we'll come full circle. I want to play this clip, which is really interesting.
You just want to make me cry over and over again. It's
Come
just
full
like-
circle. So this is you on the Steve Harvey show with your twin sister.
Yeah. Shout out to Sarah.
And you're adopted. You got a family that adopted you.
Yeah.
And but you didn't find out who your biological parents were until you were in your 20s.
Yeah.
And you found out on the Steve Harvey shows.
Twins Sarah and Sam were searching for their birth mom. Now, she gave them up for adoption when they were infants.
Did you know you knew for a fact they hadn't find your birth parents?
So there was a woman, I can't remember her name. It was either Leslie or Wendy, who had just left the Jerry Springer show as a producer. And she started at the Steve Harvey show that week, the week she started, she had 100 stories on her desk and ours was the top story. She said, we think we can help you find your biological family. She calls us, do you want to do it? I call my sister, do you want to do it? She's like, no, but this is weird and wild. Maybe. And so they fly us up. And when we get to Chicago, this is when Steve was doing his show on Oprah, in Oprah studio. And when we get there, they say, hey, we're so sorry we didn't find anybody. But we want to bring you on the show to make a plea. So we get backstage and we're rehearsing the lines like, this is what you're going to say to, hey, if you're out there one day.
So they kind of pulled the wool over you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what you're about to see. And so when this happened, I'm like, but when we got on set, something in me said there's a 50-50 chance that they found somebody.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have flew us here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to play this.
Eleanor, come on out.
What are you thinking as Eleanor is coming out?
I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was stuck because what happens is you have about 20 different emotions happening at the same time. The biggest being shock and the others being, how should I feel about this? Should I be happy? Should I be sad? Should I have a grudge? Should I? And so I actually, and you'll kind of see this in a second, I have a moment where I just put my head down because I don't know whether to cry, whether to be mad, whether to be excited. And I'm just in shock. And the Lord says to me, snap out of it. You're on TV.
All right, let's see this part. Let's see this part. Okay.
I was young and wasn't able to take care of you.
That's wild, brother.
You're killing me with the alls.
That is so, what a interesting thing to go through as an adult before the whole world. And yeah, I mean, how has that been since you met your bio mom and, you know, going on the rest of your life? And what is that relationship like?
Yeah, man. This is before I got married. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was before I was 25. Man, it's so we have 3 brothers and sisters on top of me and my twin sister. Same dad, same mom. So these like full blood. And we've connected with them. Me and my brother talk, often. We talk the most probably. And often is not every day because you don't, as a therapist said, it's been 25 years, you get another 25 to figure it out, And so you're not talking every day, but when I was going through things publicly, he called me and my biological mother called me and said, hey, are you okay? So we saw some things. Are you good? and your biological family, they just like, what do we need to do? Do we need to fight somebody? It's like, okay, what's, so it's been good. We've been, I think, appropriately easing our way into becoming a family, in our version of family. And it's been a little difficult to navigate just because, my twin sister, she, really values, and I do as well, our family, our adoptive family, the ones that raised us. And now you go from 2 families to 4 families, and you're trying to figure out, okay, I can't put you in the mom space because that's mom, but you're my biological mom, so I got to kind of create a new biological space. And you put her here. Okay, I got brothers. It's a little easier with the siblings. Okay, boom, just kind of add y'all. But you also don't want to disrespect the individuals that raised you. But you also, don't want to disrespect the ones that had you. So it's a delicate dance.
Yeah. Man, well, isn't it also a picture of the gospel that we're adopted in to the family of God?
Yeah.
I just preached on Romans 9 last night, which is a difficult passage to preach from. You got Israel, God's chosen people, and yet the Gentiles are adopted.
Yeah.
And then they're just as much of Israel, the new Israel, as Israel is.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting picture of God adopting us and grafting us in, even when we weren't desiring him at all.
Yeah. And that's why, I think for me it's so important to, no matter what anybody says, to do your best to try to live a life worthy of the call. And I think for me, it's hard to preach every Sunday when you've got all these things in your head and people that say this or say that. But for me, I think what continues to drive me is look at what the Lord has done. Look at where he rescued you from. Look at where he's not just rescued you once. It seems like he keeps rescuing you in all of these situations. And so for me, I asked Dr. Bernard, it was a great a question for me. I said, man, how could you, people are doing this. You did this. How? With me. He said, I'm just, the Lord told me to do this. So I'm doing it. And your response should be your very best. So for me, it's, okay, God, what are you saying to me about my unique journey? What I need to do? Okay, it's preaching. Okay, but I got all of I got these. He said, yeah, but I'm telling you to do this, and what needs to drive you is that. So when I look back on my parents who gave up so much and what the Lord did for me, the best thing I can do is repay him by just doing him. So I'm gonna preach as hard as I can to whoever shows up. And by the grace of God, it touches a life. It blesses somebody. I'm gonna go back and try to help people that have gone through what I've gone through. I'm gonna do my best to try to convince Ruslan to join the church.
I'm in San Diego, bro. You don't gotta convince me.
If he doesn't, at least I did my best. You know what I mean? But I'm gonna give it everything I got.
Yeah.
And I the hope is this happened at 36.
Yeah.
So hopefully from 36 to 80, I'll get it right.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm here today, is to go, let's not run away from it. Let's dive into it.
Yep.
Let's recommit ourselves and do everything we can to try to help somebody.
Yep.
Because if somebody's spiritually poor, they don't care whether or not you got divorced.
Yeah.
They just want to know God.
Yep.
Hey, let's figure this out.
Yeah. If
you can help me, got it. We'll figure. Okay. And those are some of the individuals that are now coming in our church, people who have gone through the worst. Going, help me just get to tomorrow. We had a mother show up Sunday. Her son is on trial for murder. And she was just losing it at the aisle. How do can you help me? Let's talk about it. Let's lay hands. Let's pray. And she had nowhere else to go. She came in our church. I'm preaching to her. And so that's why I keep going.
Yeah. Amen. That's beautiful, man. Listen, I think people are going to watch this. They're going to come to their own conclusions.
Yeah.
I think you've done a great job of leaning into the hard conversation. I think you've done it in a classy and respectful way. And I think people will have to wrestle with these, and it doesn't mean that there's not going to be continued tension for you, your reputation and rebuilding that. But it seems the beautiful part is that I get the sense, and maybe I get the critique, I'm too charitable, I'm too nice sometimes. But I get the sense that you this is less about rebuilding your reputation and trying to have some platform, and more about, hey, I just want to be faithful with what God's given me. And I don't think it's the door. You sense the door is not closed.
Yeah.
There seems to be confirmation from an older spiritual father that's came alongside of you, and you're just trying to be faithful and give this thing a go.
It's I think platform ruled my life long enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of what I did was based on, and what I built was based on platform. Okay, maybe if I do it like this, God will be pleased, and my parents. And as my therapist said, anytime you choose platform over health, you're going to build a platform that will crumble.
Oof. Yeah.
But if you can choose your health over platform,
Come on.
you'll build a platform that never dies.
Yeah.
Because it's built on the right thing.
Yep.
And so, I feel as if the Spirit of the Lord wants me to say this. And I was, I had this thought maybe 3 months ago. I want to apologize to the public because there were many people who, whether they know the details or not, and they've invested in me, they believed in me. And to many, I let them down. And for that, I want to apologize and recommit myself to a life of faithfulness and somebody that they can believe in and getting it right. And I think I've been wanting to say sorry for a long time, but it just seemed as if it wasn't the right climate, the right environment, trying to protect my son, trying to do this, trying not to offend more, trying not to but now it seems on this platform it's the perfect place to apologize, to recommit, and to share my heart. The hope is for whoever decides to believe in the ministry that God's doing through Sam. Again, my commitment is to live a life worthy of the call, and to do my best to impact based on the lessons that I've learned.
Yeah. Amen. I was telling you offline, I think that this is also a cautionary tale here. And I know that's also not fun to be the guy that's like, hey guys, learn from my mistakes, you know? But I do think that there's a utility to that. So what would you speak, like if you could speak to the version of yourself from 12 years ago, 15 years ago, what would you say to that? Because there's man, especially now with social media, there's a lot of these kids that are getting booming and for preaching the gospel in their early 20s, mid 20s, and they have platform status, access to excess, money, all these things, right? What would you say to those folks that are watching that I think your story can serve in a way as a cautionary tale?
Wow. I'm going to speak to those that desire influence. I think when we're younger and when we're at the beginning stages of influence, we think that it's never going to come back. We're never going to get it, or we got to get it now and by any means necessary. But what you realize is, man, whether you're 40, Andy planted North Point at 40. And whether you're 40 or 20 or 30 or 50 or 60, Morgan Freeman was older when he became a famous actor. Influence is always possible, always. You don't have to chase that. I would go back and tell myself, you got time, go slower and make the right call. If I could go back and really encourage myself in a different way, I would say, you got wise counsel in your life. Listen to them. Don't get so caught up in your own ideology around what you think is right. Because that's what I've gotten this right. Success, this is what I've discovered, is the greatest enemy of success.
Oof. Hold on. You got to say that again.
Success is the greatest enemy of success because it convinces you that you got it together.
Come on.
So when it's time for you to submit to those who are more successful, who are in your life, you go, well, I got that right. I'll get this right. And you lean into, I'll just get married. And you pay the price later on versus going, no, like God has put wise counsel around you to be the cautionary tale because they're telling you, hey, wait, because they know what's down the line. A lot of reasons that I believe Andy Stanley didn't just completely crush me, besides the fact that I wasn't on staff, because he would have. But the fact that he just didn't come down and be like, because he knew I signed up for something very difficult. He's like, that's your own punishment. You you. And I actually later on spoke to him and said, "She'll listen to you." He was like, "Well, you learn." So I that's what I would say. I would go back to myself and say, listen to the wise people around you, and choose a circle of people that you can run with. That, and I'll use my therapist. Sam, you have to have people in your life that love you, whether you are on Ruslan show or not, whether you are speaking on a million stages or not. They love you. Whether if you stop and you become, nothing wrong with working at Chick-fil-A, but if you on the fries at Chick-fil-A, they love you.
Come on.
That's who you. I didn't build my life around that. I maybe had half of the people around that, but build your life with people that don't care about and will be with you whether you're up or whether you're down, because those are the people that will tell you the truth. I mean, those are the people that you don't feel like you have to perform for. They'll be with you in that time, and they'll help you make the right decisions.
Yeah.
Got time.
It's good, man. That's good. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Health over platform.
That's it.
And thank you, bro.
Yeah,
it means a lot, and I hope you don't get eaten alive in the comments.
I'm used to it at this point. But yeah, you know, I feel like this is a good conversation, fair conversation. I think ultimately, man, God uses flawed vessels, and I think I want to see you win. I want to see you be healthy, and I love where you're going and the trajectory you're going. I'll be honest, I would have felt very uncomfortable doing this if Dr. A.R. Bernard wasn't involved.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think the fact that like it seems like not only did you do the personal and mental health and the, you know, all that, like, but that it seems like you're committing and submitting to a process.
Yeah.
And that's really refreshing, you know? And so even though my theology is like, I don't know, man, this is really hard for me. I think that's the part that I'm like, man, that's dope. Like, it seems like you're doing everything within your power to try and take accountability, confess your sin, and be used by the Lord, you know, however he sees fit. So kudos to you, man.
I'm going to get you to the church.
I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna come visit. It's not like I'm not going to. I'll pull up next time I'm in Atlanta.
I'm a beg.
Don't, but you ain't got to beg.
No, thank you, man.
Sam, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you for that.
All right, guys, we're out of here. Hey, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. All right, and I'm sure if you reach out to Sam, he might respond to you directly if you got any other further critiques.
Leave me alone, please. Please leave me alone. Please.
All right, we're out here.
I'm going through enough.
Peace.
What do Wes Huff, KB from Southside Rabbi, Ninjas of Butterflies, Josh Nadeau all have in common? They're all going to be with me live at Bless God Summit 2026 here at the Seabird Resort in Oceanside, California, while we're right on the water. Now, those of you guys that attended the first Bless God Summit, the 400 of you, we heard you loud and clear. We're keeping the prices the same at a nicer resort. The lineup is going to be even more incredible. We're bringing back some of the speakers, and we're even renting out the Oceanside Amphitheater for the most incredible night of music and outreach. My man Dustin Tavella, who won America's Got Talent, is coming back, and an additional lineup of performers that are all going to be performing here at the Oceanside Amphitheater the final night of the Bless God Summit. We heard your requests. The kids' tickets ages are going up. The resort is even nicer. We won't be sitting down as much. We'll be out networking. Some of the sessions will even be outside on the water, all with the vision of leaning into worldview, virtue, and impact. March 5th, 6th, and 7th here in Oceanside, California. Bless God Summit. Go to blessgodsummit.com and get your tickets now.
I decided to just come, not really knowing what to expect, and man, I'm so glad that I did.
You don't expect it to be so intimate, and so like the group of people that was there, I think it was great. We were able to see people who are truly seeking God. We got to see a ton of people who are special, we'll call it in the industry.
One of our major takeaways has just been how God blesses in you being faithful. A lot of Christians just want to chase after success instead of chasing faithfulness.
I think it's just been really effective how like everybody has been teaching you how they've been able to like follow Jesus and make disciples as they're going.
It's a really classy summit. I am just very impressed with the quality and the structure, and just a very classy, very nice.
As much as like we can get so much from online content, there's a huge difference between being here. None of these people are egotistical. They'll shake hands with you.
I did the sponsorship back in November and just left it in God's hands and just prepared myself if he allowed it that I would be here. Here I am.
People that you're gonna meet are amazing.
You're gonna meet friends here and you're also gonna be edified.
I'm honestly amazed at the diversity and the need.
It's a super fun time, so you guys are not gonna want to miss out.